we're wanting to move forward.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Did you have a follow-up question? Go quickly, please.
I can say it bluntly. So PMRA is looking at all of those information too, and they very clearly said on November 25th there's insufficient information to take action. So what evidence do you have that they haven't seen? Or what expertise do you have in your agency that they don't have in theirs?
We don't have any extra evidence that PMRA doesn't have. We would share all information and work quite closely with PMRA. So we don't have any extra evidence or additional evidence. We're scanning the science like everybody else that's scanning the science. And so, if I could finish, please. And so we don't have any extra science, so dissuade yourself from that. But we are looking at it because they have to act nationally. And we have to act in terms of what's going on and what's the evidence in Ontario in terms of the direction the government has taken at this stage, wanting to exercise precaution, clearly described in the discussion paper, and wanting to move forward with some action and not await. We continue to encourage the PMRA to accelerate their work and do their science reviews and finish it up. At this stage, in terms of what's described, it's a significant part of it is based on exercising some precaution.
I'd just like to add to Steve's response that I think it's important to recognize that the proposal that Ontario has on the table here is really about focusing the use of neonicotinoid insecticide treatments where they are needed, and that's the critical point, that we really shouldn't be using pesticides where they're not needed, and that's sort of a general approach.
Good afternoon. I was just wondering how many neighboring states and neighboring provinces are doing the same thing we are doing right now for 2016? And I asked that question as, can I just go over to Quebec and get the same thing that we're using right now? And how are you going to stop it?
So let me see if I understand the question. So two parts is, for 2015, there will not be, until July, there won't be a regulatory process in place. So then in terms of the fall, they will be pesticides that will be controlled in Ontario. And so while people can, similar to the cosmetic pesticides ban, drive across the border, so to speak, but they'll be breaking the law. Because the use of those pesticides in Ontario then, if the proposal moves forward and the government makes that decision, will be regulated by the Pesticides Act and regulation.
Can we just, wouldn't it be fair to discuss this with all the provinces in Canada? And especially everybody in the States, and get everybody on board before you start going lunging ahead here and then saying, this is what we're going to do. We can go underground if you don't like what we're doing, and get the same corn for years to come. And you will not even know it. This is a big problem.
Okay. As a beekeeper, I'm very happy to see the points made in the discussion paper. I think it comes up a little short about where the bees are exposed. There's one AFRA study done showing that the bees are exposed when the soil is worked, as residuals staying in the ground. It's exposed again from the dust from the planters. There's been a lot of talks about that. But every time it rains, there's puddles form in the field if it rains hard enough. The bees are exposed again there. The bees are also exposed again when the pollen pollinates. It's still in the plant, there's lethal levels in the corn pollen. And then there's all the plants that are surrounding the fields that it has gone into as well. So there's the 5 things that it's really routes that it's been exposed to bees.
Okay. Ellen, the gentleman over here, please. Sorry, I can't read the name tag. Never mind. Thanks.
You used the term qualified farmer. Can you define that?
So within, and I'm going to look over to my pesticide specialist, the local guy here. So that's within the Pesticides Act and regulation now for farmers that want to apply pesticides that are classified. So the seeds aren't now, but there are other products, there are other neonicotinoids that either use the foliar or use fertile. And to be able to use those, you have to go through the training at Ridgetown College and become a qualified farmer.
Okay? Thank you. Ellen, the gentleman at the back in the blue shirt, please.
Thank you. My name is Dave. I am a farmer, and I am very concerned about pollinator health, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Question on the process that has been in place and some of the leaps and bounds we have made from 2013 to 2014 as far as pest management practices on the farm, that in PMRA's recent preliminary report has shown tremendous reductions in bee incidents. As well, I wouldn't mind a comment on, I know and I understand why we are doing this as a province and we're not doing it in Canadian. Does seem like an isolated issue here in Ontario. Just a comment on PMRA's numbers, that the incidents in 2014, of those incidents, 72% of them were represented by 3 beekeepers. Just wondered why back to my original question, was this process that was started with the Bee Health Group, which had industry players from both agriculture, seed companies, the different agricultural organizations, and the beekeepers, that seemed to be heading in one direction, and then all of a sudden, just a few weeks ago, when this announcement was made, it kind of fell off the tracks. Just wondered why that happened, and a comment on the PMRA data.
Yeah, I guess broadly, government's made the decision to go in this direction in terms of pollinator health and a specific regulatory proposal. In terms of my read of that PMRA report, I think there's a lot of caveats. It's early, more analysis, a lot of caveats on that work, and as it should be. And so I'm not sure why they decided to put it out. It's great that they do, and as I said, clearly the province has encouraged the federal government and PMRA to go faster in terms of their work and get it done. And so I think there are a lot of comments in that report to say that this is preliminary. Much more analysis needs to be done around the 2014 data to fully understand it.
I'd just like to add to the answer that Steve has given, that we recognize the good work that is being done, that was triggered by the Ontario Bee Working Group, and that we want to build on that, and we are looking for ideas in terms of how we can achieve a more significant reduction in the use of neonicotinoids where they're not needed, in order to achieve this aspirational target that has been put forward by the government, the 80% reduction by 2017. So we are open to finding, we want to make this regulation balanced, fair, and implementable. So we're really interested in ideas on how to make that happen.
I'd like to echo Ms. Fellow's comments that the Bee Health Working Group was more than just one side looking at this issue. This was a broad community effort, and I don't think we've given the 13 recommendations the time it takes to actually see if they're working effectively.
The working group, there's only 3 beekeepers there. That was disappointed there wasn't more there. But however, the thing is, what's going through my mind is there any study the effect of human health? I understand for a sweet corn, it's allowed, it's not part of this. I myself have made 3 sweet corn for the last 3 years because the way I see the bees die. From the pollen from the corn, I'm scared of sweet corn. Just the planet that's not taken off as well. If money could be set aside to do the proper research on the pet and humans and babies.
Certainly there would have been a body of evidence when these pesticides were first registered federally, but it is an area that we see some science work is going on, and people are looking into that in terms of exposure, human exposure, and what that might mean.
Hey, my name's Brenda. I'm a certified crop advisor advisor and farmer. I'd like to say on our own farm, personal farm, over half of our acres are under cover crop and no-till through the growing season. So in concern about it, MAPA, government agency is pushing for increased cover crops, increased no-till conservation tillage. And their own numbers have shown that 30% of acres need meal mix. Why the 20% when your own government agency shows 30% and wants to increase cover crops and no-till acres that would need the meal mix to protect that?
Okay, there's a couple of concepts tied up in that, and we recognize there's multiple things we need to do in terms of protecting the environment. So we have a concern around the impacts of meal mix. We do also have a concern about erosion and ensuring proper soil health and continuing with good practices like conservation tillage. So we're trying to find the right balance. There's always trade-offs here. So the 80% is an aspirational target. That's how it's been communicated. It's meant to be a challenge target, a stretch target, so that we really challenge ourselves to find ways to get there. But we do want to make sure that when we're putting a regulatory proposal in place, that we're not going to have other adverse impacts that are things we're trying to avoid. So we do need to look at all these things as we're looking through the proposal.
Tom Hartman, a farmer from Elgin County. In light of the upcoming legislation, we're working ground right now as I speak for the first time in many, many years. We've been no-tiller, minimum tillage for 25 or 30 years. We need this kind of protection for our seeds. Without that, we'll have to plant in conventional till to get these plants up growing faster. So that's a direct impact on me already.
All right. Steve and Sharon, thank you very much. I'm going to push us along to the discussion tables now with your permission. A number of you probably noticed Helen when she would come up to somebody and she would hold the microphone and they would want to grab the microphone. What we learned in facilitator school is never let the person
Sorry,
take
can you
the
speak into the
microphone.
mic? We can't hear you.
Touche. Thank you. I was just trying to explain, if you noticed Helen, she would go to the person and she would hold on to the microphone. The person would want to take the microphone. She wouldn't let her. She'd still hold on to it. And I was saying, what we all learned as facilitators was there's a high risk that if you let someone have the microphone, you will not get it back. And as we were trying to move the flow along, Ellen was holding on to the microphone and a number of people. So please don't feel offended. That's simply what we do as facilitators to keep the process going. Okay, before we get to the discussion tables, all of you should have gotten a one-page sheet on the table that on one side has the list of the questions from section A of the discussion paper, and the reverse side has the questions from section B. And what I just wanted to reinforce, although we only got about an hour and 15 minutes for the discussion tables, there may be a number of times that you want to make a comment, but you don't want to take up the airtime of the group. Please use this forum to fill those comments out and make sure you give them to us, because they get included in the analysis. So it's an additional tool that we're using to help glean, gather your suggestions and your ideas. We're still comfortable providing that. Okay, Helen just mentioned to me that if you want copies of the discussion paper, they're over on the back side. So those are available as well if you want to refresh your memory and didn't bring your own copy with you. done. And I'm hoping the whole room just moved to get a copy of the discussion paper. No. What we've done is we've highlighted what we think are some key questions that the two ministries would like to get feedback on. So we've been selective under Part A questions with question 2 and question 3. And then in the Part B questions, we've chosen 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, if you feel it's important that you want to make a comment about question 1 or question 7 or 8, feel comfortable to say to your table leader, let's not ignore that. I've got a couple of comments I'd like to make about it. This is just to highlight a way of trying to help us get through the time as we're going. It also means that you've probably got about 8 to 9 minutes per question, which I know is short. Okay? But I've asked the discussion leaders to kind of try to keep to that, to get through as many of them as you can. But on the other hand, if you're having a really good conversation and discussion about one of the questions, and it's taking more than 8 minutes, continue. Doesn't mean that every table has to get through all of the questions. We're trying to make sure there's an opportunity to do that. But the more important thing to us is that you have that kind of discussion about what you like and what you don't like, about what's included under the questions in the discussion table. So with that, let me turn you over to your table facilitators. And at the rate we're going, you've got a good hour and 15 minutes before we'll then do the plenary to find out the major headlines from each table. So let me turn you over to your table facilitators and let you start your discussion. The only other quick thing I would mention is if one table gets fairly rowdy, the thing you should realize there are at least 4 tables around you that are not going to be able to have their conversation. So you may just want to have a little bit of your table. So, please, let me turn you over to your table facilitators.